Welcome to the Geek, the Nerd, and the Tangent. This is June the 15th, and Matt and Chelsea are fresh out of The Incredibles 2. I should say Incredibles 2. There's no "the" in the title. We are here to give you just a brief review of what we thought of Incredibles 2. It will be spoiler heavy, probably. We'll most likely run into some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, do that first.
Lots of spoilers.
Lots and lots of spoilers.
You've been warned.
You have been warned. So, and we've said this enough times now that you probably have time to get away if you, you can push stop to this podcast. Go see the movie and then come back and hear what we have to say about it. But anyway, first off, let's just do first impressions. Why don't you start off, Chels?
I thought it was really fun. I thought it was a good sequel. There was a time during the movie when I thought it feels like they took a long time to do this. They didn't just rush it together to make it a sequel, but they really did it the right way.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you on that. Even at the beginning of the movie, they're like, it's been 14 years. They kind of had an introduction, all the cast members, not all of them, but a lot of the cast, the voice artists, they came together and said, it's been 14 years. Thanks for waiting. We hope you appreciate it. It takes a long time to make these things good. And that's true about Pixar. Pixar always takes their time. You hear about these movies for years before they come out. And that's how it should be. They should be in development. They should be working on the story. They should be getting things right up until, the last minute. It should take a long time to make a movie this good.
It's quality.
Yeah, it is. It's quality. You don't get that from a lot of other animation studios. Mm-hmm. You don't get that same level of quality, from a DreamWorks movie. You get some good movies. You get some fun ones, but they're not like A standard movies, I think. Pixar has had a few movies that haven't been quite as good as some other ones, like Cars 2, for example. And a lot of people didn't like...
But I liked Cars 2.
Yeah, you liked it, which is fine. It's fine if you like it, right? But critically, it wasn't as loved as a lot of them. Brave, for some reason, a lot of people didn't like that one as well.
Really? Oh, I love Brave.
Yeah, I liked it too. I liked The Good Dinosaur, personally.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little sad, but it was an interesting movie. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Pixar is known for doing this great work. If you've never read the book by Ed Catmull called Creativity Inc., I highly recommend it. It is about his entire process of bringing Pixar from its beginning stages into what it is today, basically. And he even had a hand, after they saw his management style at Pixar, he had a hand in bringing Disney animation up to what it is today, which they're putting out some really excellent animated movies as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into Pixar, and there's a very collaborative environment there, which I really appreciate. And you could tell that it's not just one person creating something. I mean, like Brad Bird is the director of the film, so he's kind of in charge of it. He's the one creating it, but they have frequent meetings together, with a lot of different people getting, picking their brain, making sure they're not just doing ridiculous things, that they're doing things that make sense to the characters, they're developing them and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So what was your first impression?
Oh, I guess I never did get to that. My first impression, I loved this movie. I had a good time. I think it lives up to the original. Our dog is coming in, so you may have heard a dog collar. But yeah, I really think it lives up to the original. I personally do. I had at least as much fun watching this movie as I did the original one.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit more intense. There were a few moments when our kids thought it was a little scary. So it has a couple more scary moments than some of them.
Yeah, if you have children that are kind of sensitive to just some pretty mildly scary images, but for kids they could be pretty scary if they're sensitive to that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind. You may want them to be a little older before they watch it, but
Just superhero fighting, and I mean, our kids were, almost 5 and 2. So, they're pretty young, but they handled it. It was just a little bit scarier than some.
yeah. And if you're listening to this, you probably already know that anyway, because you saw the movie, hopefully.
Yes,
But
that's true.
So we're kind of diving into possibly some pointless territory. But anyway, I loved the movie. I loved the subtleties. I loved the development of character. I really enjoyed having the callbacks from those original characters. And you can do that because it takes place right after the other movie.
Yeah, I
There's
like
no
that.
time gap.
I liked that it wasn't just years and years later. It wasn't years later and a reflection and a memory. It was, it picked up where they left off. That was really good.
One thing that worried me at the beginning was I thought maybe they were going to take the Underminer and have him be more of a big role. That the villain that's at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's like, I am the Underminer, and that's how the other movie ends.
Mm-hmm.
I was really glad that they didn't go that direction because the tone of the last movie, it was an ending tone. It wasn't like a sequel tone where this villain would have been a good sequel villain. It was kind of more of a little bit of a humorous villain.
Yeah. He was a silly villain.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a really good way of introducing these characters and setting up the conflict between the husband and wife as to, who should be doing what in their roles. And, so it was a good way of getting the story started. And I think it's a good way for them to have started it because you're starting to establish that, they kind of have that edge of competition amongst them a little bit, but they are supportive of each other, and you start to see that dynamic within their marriage because of that situation.
And they get in trouble with the law, and things change in that way.
Yeah, it sets that up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it sets a lot of good things up. It sets up the characters. It sets up the relationships. It sets up the premise for the movie that they're kind of fighting for legality in this one, which is, that's a good premise to go for, I think. So.
I agree. And one thing about that I thought was that it was kind of predictable a little bit with the bad guys were a little predictable, but it's a kid's movie and I'm an adult watching it. So maybe not to everyone it would have been, maybe not to all kids.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I didn't call it 100% because, you have the brother and the sister and you'd think they're kind of working together maybe, or that he's kind of the mastermind behind it all. That's kind of how they set it up to look like. He looks a little bit, they put in those subtle cues throughout the movie to make you kind of lean toward him being the villain. Mm-hmm. And they try to set her up as more of a friendly type.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it should be throwing up some red flags as well, because if something looks too good, then something's fishy, right?
Yeah, there were some things here and there, even at the beginning when they were talking about their parents, and she was saying, well, if they would have hidden in the safe room instead of calling the superheroes, so that there were hints through it,
right?
But yeah.
And it's good, you always expect Pixar to have a more three-dimensional villain. They have a reason for being the person that they are. The first Incredibles movie did that really well.
Yeah. With
the little boy that got rejected by Mr. Incredible, and then he grew up to be a villain because of that. And in this case, her parents were killed. If I understood that right, they were killed in a superhero battle, essentially, right?
No.
Or did I miss?
Yeah. So her. The home got broken into.
Things were a little crazy for us in the theater. Let me just say that
our 2-year-old was crazy. Yeah, lots of ices were spilled all over the ground.
Mostly just one, but it was awful. I am never going to the movie with that child again unless there is a cry room because I feel bad. She wasn't super loud, but she was distracting to us at least. Yeah. And if I could just take her into a room where I could still watch the movie and not have to worry about her as much. That
Yeah.
would be nice.
So what happened was the dad was friends with the superheroes and he relied on them, and so he had a phone that would call different superheroes. And someone broke into their house, and the mom wanted to hide in their safe room, but the dad wanted to call the superheroes. The superheroes didn't get there in time. They the robbers saw him calling and shot him.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't think the mom was killed, but they would have both been safe if they would have just hid instead of relying on the superheroes.
That's interesting because for some reason I walked away with the impression that the parents were just collateral damage. I'm not sure why. Of like a superhero battle. So they're kind of going off of do you remember Man of Steel? We saw that movie.
Yeah.
How at the end of the movie it's just complete destruction everywhere. It's just ridiculous. And they kind of play off that in Batman versus Superman, which is an awful movie, but Batman's really mad at Superman because he caused all this destruction and that sort of thing. So they were trying to play up the collateral damage from the fight at the end of Man of Steel. And that's kind of, I guess, what the impression I had was, which I almost like a little bit better than what you actually explained to me. Just because in that case, the superheroes actually did something. In this case, they just didn't show up, which is interesting.
Well, and then the brother, he thought, well, if they did show up, then his parents would be safe. So what he took from it as a kid is if the superheroes would have come in time, his parents would have been safe. So we need the superheroes to be there all the time and be there with us. And she took it opposite.
Yeah.
And so that's why
she took it as the fact that
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess with that way you could play that dynamic and set them up so they're not just like, "Mwahaha, I'm an evil, we're an evil brother and sister," right? But he's a decent fellow, and he actually his motives for bringing about the legality of the superheroes is legitimate. Which at first you're like, this is too good to be true, right? And so they do throw you off a little bit with that. I think
you don't know who the bad guy is.
There's some predictability because you're not introduced to any other well-developed characters, so it's got to be one of these people, right?
Yeah. Because
usually you're introduced to the villain in some form, and so it's got to be something to do with these people and this legality going. The fight for legality. It has to do something with that, and you suspect the brother and the sister somehow, but you don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And the best part of the movie is Jack. The kids are a really fun part because they're a lot more developed and old, a little bit older, and just Jack is just so funny. And the part with the raccoon where he's fighting him, and that just
that was such a fun scene.
So fun.
I think they just had a fun time. I think it's almost like they imagined that as a short. Like a short, but they put it in the movie.
Because there is a short called Jack Attack. Have you seen
right,
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not that they really address that short in the movie because the babysitter probably would have told them, maybe, I don't know, that he had these different powers, but they didn't know about it in the movie, so I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't cover that base as much, but...
Yeah, but it was still just so fun. It was such a good... all throughout the whole movie, and then Edna with him too.
That's so fun.
Yeah,
because I mean, she's really fun, voiced by Brad Bird, the film director, which is interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was a man and someone involved in the film. Yeah, that's really fun.
Yeah, it's really fun, and I thought that dynamic was great. Him bringing Jack over to her, and of course, it's a little bit silly that she can just come up with this incredible technology that allows the superheroes to do these things based on their powers. She can figure things out for them, but it doesn't matter. It's just
that's just who she is.
We know that she can do it, so it's fine. I think it's funny that the whole designer thing that someone else designed, Elastigirl's suit. They kind of played off of that. It was an enjoyable movie all around. There's such subtlety in there.
Yeah, it's one that you want to watch again.
Yeah,
and catch all the subtlety.
Or just watch again in a normal
without kids.
Yeah, without kids. Which, although I must say, when it's a kids movie, and first and foremost, a Pixar movie is a kids movie. I think. The the masters at making it appealing to adults as well.
Yeah.
They're showing, they're the masters at showing you that you can make a GPG rated movie that's very much enjoyable to adults, which I love. And I have a coworker, and if he's listening to this, he knows how I feel about this. We've had this discussion, but he won't watch anything below a PG-13 rating. He refuses. And he thinks that if he doesn't go on a date, or if he's not with like a kid or something, because basically he's like, oh, I won't see that because I don't have kids. It's like, that doesn't make sense, man. Like, Coco, that was a legitimate movie that anyone, I think, would connect with.
Yeah, you're gonna miss out on so much.
You're gonna miss out on some great movies.
Yeah.
But that's his choice, and if all he wants to watch in life is Westworld and whatever, which I'm not saying is poor storytelling or anything like that, but I'm just saying there's room in life for innocence, and there's room in life for a well-conceived story, even if there's innocence there. It's a great thing to have.
Yeah. To
walk out of a movie feeling like you didn't just watch death and destruction 24/7. It was an uplifting, upbeat, colorful, visually stimulating movie that was very three-dimensional and well developed.
Mm-hmm. And a masterpiece. Like, some of these movies are masterpieces, like Coco
for sure. Visually, and the story and the characters, everything was. I mean, The Incredibles, it's more of just a fun movie, right? It's still masterfully done, and they still did a great job with these characters, and they did justice to the original film. That's a favorite of a lot of people.
And it's really fun how they have the different time, or not the different time periods, but they have that time period.
Right.
Because you kind of guessed that it was a different time period in the first Incredibles, but it wasn't as obvious. You were like, oh yeah, I guess that is a different time period. But in this one, it's obvious that it is. Well, because of technology.
Yeah.
The technology they had made it really clear. But their architecture of the house, especially the mansions, the architecture of that was just so fun. So I guess maybe more into the 70s. The other one was a little bit more into the 60s. But, I mean, it's right on that cusp maybe. But I don't know. It was just really fun.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. There's such subtle moments in the animation that I think is just so excellent. I mean, there's a moment when the moment when he goes to Edna's place after she had watched him and he got a little bit of sleep, I think. He's going to sit down in the chair and he just bumps his knee on the coffee table. If you blink, you don't even notice it. But they're just putting in this texture, I would call it, to the movie that normal animation wouldn't bother with.
No. Right?
And it plays nothing into the story. It doesn't matter at all that he bumped his knee. It's just a funny little thing in the background that happens, that if you're paying attention, you notice these little tiny things that they're always doing. And it just makes it gives that spice to the movie that a lot of others are kind of lacking.
Yeah. It makes it more real, more depth of the characters.
Exactly. And I just got to say that Pixar is a master storytelling company. They just really are. Owned by Disney or not, they are just killer, and they are doing such a good job. And maybe Lucasfilm should take some lessons from Pixar's way of doing things, because I know this is a tangent, but that's what we do sometimes. But if you think about it, the way that Lucasfilm has been working is they've been giving creative control of their movies to pretty much one director. And they've got a story group and other things going on. But the way Pixar works is, yes, they give someone creative control, but at the same time, they don't have all the say. And they're always open to ideas and collaboration where, people are sitting down and going through things and speculating and poking holes in their plots and everything. They're going through this huge process. And I think Lucasfilm is just trying to churn out movies as fast as they can, earn that $4 billion back that they paid for, Lucasfilm to George Lucas. And they're not taking the time to maybe do it the right way. I think they should take a lesson from Ed Catmull and learn his management style. I think Kathleen Kennedy would be wise to try that out. And I obviously I don't have all the insight to how things are done at Lucasfilm, but I can pretty much guarantee you it's not the same management style and not the same direction as is done at Pixar. It's not the same thing, because Pixar is always churning out masterpieces. I guess not always, but most of the time they are hits. Mm-hmm. Critics love them, audiences love them. It doesn't matter, Mm-hmm. With Star Wars, you're kind of hit or miss. You have The Last Jedi that critics loved. That's in the 90-something% for favorable reviews from critics. It's at like 46% for audience, which is just ridiculous. Star Wars fans not being able to be pleased. And, that's another conversation, but I just think it would be interesting to see that same management style, at a Lucasfilm, if they developed a movie for years, if they took 3, 4, or 5 years, however long these Pixar movies are taking, mm-hmm. and they just developed these movies. I'm not saying like don't throw out a movie here and there to earn some money or whatever you got to do, but take the time to really develop a solid movie and use some collaborative efforts, not just creative control of one person, and just see where that takes you. And I think it would do them a lot of good to take a page out of Pixar's book, essentially.
Yeah.
I know that was a big tangent, but I just got to say I love Pixar. Whenever there's a Pixar movie, I get excited to see it.
Yeah.
I don't always feel that way with animation. I went and saw Boss Baby because Lydia, our daughter, wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And so I went and saw it. It was better than I thought it would be, but it's still,
it wasn't Pixar.
It's forgettable. I don't care about it. It was okay to watch once, but I'm never revisiting that movie ever. It doesn't do anything for me, but after I left The Incredibles 2, I wanted to watch it again. And partly that's because it was not the best viewing experience from us, but it's also because it was such a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one that you would watch, you'd be happy to watch over and over with your kids, or you'd want to watch it once without the kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just as enjoyable for adults because you're still seeing the dynamic of these adult characters working and playing off together. There's kids aren't going to understand that level of things, but there's I guess kind of two different levels of understanding of the movie. There's the basic kid entertainment factor, which is great, but there's also that adult level depth to the movie, which again, I know I kind of repeated myself on that, but Pixar is a master at doing. Making it appealing to both audiences.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, I liked the short at the beginning, too.
Short was so interesting, wasn't it?
It was really interesting. It was shocking at times, and then...
Definitely shocking. The whole theater gasped at one point.
Oh, yes.
I guess we can spoil it because we warned about it.
Yeah, I sure did. And then my mom was just over there crying.
Yeah. But I want to watch it again because I think watching it again, I would understand it better.
Yeah.
Kind
of symbolic.
It's very symbolic. It's obviously there's not a little dumpling man running around. I mean, as far as I understood, it seems like it's more to do with her experiencing the emotions of her child basically moving on with their life and maybe being out of the home and not being as much of a part of her life, or it almost seemed like at the end, like maybe he was a little bit estranged to her, something like that. But pretty much it's her emotions being represented by this little tiny dumpling thing, where she's remembering these fun times and she's remembering him growing up and those hard moments of adolescence. And then he goes out the door and with this girl and she doesn't want that to happen. And so she eats the dumpling, right? And it's just so symbolic of like her resisting that change, her resisting that, she's not willing to let him go in that sense, not because she doesn't exactly have the best marriage life.
Yeah.
He just shoves some dumplings in his mouth and leaves, right? But she has this whole, it's just this whole experience of her, I guess, it's a visual representation of what this mother is going through, which is interesting. I didn't really grasp that until I really thought about it. And I, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems like what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
But I would love to watch it again because, I mean, I really hope that short film gets recognition because there's some depth there. There really is.
Yeah, there really is. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the little one, the Piper. Remember Piper, the little bird at the...
Yeah.
I mean, that's a adorable little cartoon and it's fun and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is like profound,
Yeah, this
something
one's
only
definitely
adults
profound.
would really get.
Yeah, other kids would just say,
What just happened? Yeah.
Which they
Like,
did. I think our 2-year-old said, owie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it was great. I love all their shorts.
Yeah.
I really do. They're so fun.
And I love that they put them on DVD so that you can own them all together.
Yeah. They're just a really good time. I enjoy them. So from short to the full-length feature, completely enjoyable experience in the theater. If for some reason you're listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie.
Yeah.
You won't regret it. You'll have a good time. It'll be a ticket worth your money, no matter what theater you see it in. It's just a great movie. Let's see. Let's give our last thoughts here. Give a grade, a rating of some kind, if you've thought that through, and we'll go from there.
I would say A-.
Okay. What's the minus?
I don't know. I might even have to think about it more to really know why the minus. Just it, maybe a little bit of predictableness. Maybe.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we talked about that quite a bit, but
Yeah.
I think there is a level of predictability because it's inevitable what's kind of going to happen with this. Like, there's something fishy. But I do think in the end, it's not 100% predictable because it does kind of flip that that the brother's not involved at all, and it's her. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
What would you give it?
I would probably give it an A- as well.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, Coco I gave a solid A to. If I gave A+, I would give an A+.
Yeah.
It was just the most beautiful movie, and it was so good, and I could watch it over and over and just love it. And I think I could do that with Incredibles 2. But it doesn't have the same level of depth to it.
Yeah.
It's more of a fun movie. Not to say that the characters aren't well rounded. It's not. It's very well conceived. Mm-hmm. Characters are very well developed. It's a wonderful film. I would just give it an A- just because of that mostly.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie. It stands up to the original, definitely. And I highly recommend people seeing this movie. I will always be recommending that.
Yeah, me too.
But I guess that doesn't mean much coming from me because I like to see all movies, bad or good, I guess. But because I like to know why they're bad, Yeah. Like, I like to learn from people's mistakes, I guess.
There are some that you'd say like, "Oh, don't bother," though. Yeah, I would think that there are some that you say that about.
Probably.
So,
yeah.
But this
for
is definitely...
for other people, I would say that.
Yeah, for other
For
people.
myself, I still want to go see those movies because I want to learn why is this so bad.
And you're kind of a film critic of sorts, and so that But for just the regular person that's trying to choose, I only take my kids to a movie every so often. Should I bother with this one? Yeah. Right. Yeah. You should bother.
This one definitely bother with. I mean, be aware if your child is going to get scared of something. There's a few scary images, I would say, just with the initial kind of bad guy.
The bad guy's mask. Yeah.
It's a little creepy looking, but other than that, just go to the movie, have a great time. Anyway, any last thoughts on this movie?
No.
Nothing left, huh?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just had a great time, so I hope you guys enjoyed this small little episode of our review of Incredibles 2. We had a lot of fun watching it, and thank you so much for listening. And, we'll hear from you tomorrow, or you'll hear from us again tomorrow, where we'll be joined by my sister Amanda, actually, and our main topic is going to be adaptations. It's going to be our 10th episode. So join us then, and we look forward to hearing from you, and we always want to hear what you have to say as well.